You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the law offices of Morgan Lewis in Philadelphia. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, who include Caleb Murphy, Merrill Lynch, Meredith Catalucci, Hanlon, Denise Lantz, Attentive Health, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Brian Slough, Morgan Lewis, Peter Carriacotis, Emmanuel Insurance, and Jim Rogers, Hafley Flanagan. And let's see. Shannon, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today, please?
Sure, Herb. We have a great lineup. We have Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of Primo Hogies Franchising, Carol Austin, Executive Director of First Up, Travis Rhodes, Regional President of BB&T Bank, and Josh Bush, CEO of Avenue 2 Travel.
Let's get to know our first guest, Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of Primo Hogies Franchising. Rocco, what is Primo Hogies Franchising? What are you guys doing?
Well, thank you for having me here today. Primo Hogies Franchising is a franchisor in the sandwich category and started in Philadelphia 15 years ago, and we're in 8 states today.
Where you from originally?
South Philadelphia.
That's like a row house.
That is exactly like a row house.
Was that like a really affluent neighborhood you grew up in?
Very Italian, and moderate income, and a lot of fun.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 2 siblings.
And you're the youngest of 3?
I am.
So you grew up in a modest income neighborhood, row house in South Philadelphia, and I understand you've been involved. Well, you're what they call a serial entrepreneur, where you tend to get involved with something and build it, and then you get involved with building. What kind of businesses have you been involved with starting and building?
Yeah, when I was real young, Herb, my first business, I was a mechanical contractor, and then by default got into the bagel business and grew that to 68 stores, sold it to a public company, then went on to be a franchisee of Krispy Kreme in the PA, New Jersey, Delaware market, then went on to head up a company called Benetrends Financial for 7 years, and most recently, 3 years ago, I joined the team at Primo Hogies.
So you've been involved with starting a couple and exiting a couple of substantial business. If you wanted to financially retire, could you?
I could, but that would be no fun.
What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know what I would retire to. I kind of work from the neck up, and I love what I do. So if I retired, I'd go to lunch with my friends and do deals and not get paid. That wouldn't be any fun.
So you enjoy what? What's meaningful to you? Why are you working nowadays if you don't have to?
Well, because I really love to serve people, and I really love to see progress. So I'd like to paint a few more pictures and hang them.
Brian?
So you worked in a restaurant when you were younger. How old were you when you started working there?
I was 13 when I started at Mara's Pizza on Passyunk Avenue.
How'd you get that job?
I wanted to work somewhere because I wanted to buy a car. And I went in at 13. They said they couldn't hire me because I was too young. And I said, what if I volunteered to be a busboy? And they said, absolutely. Can you start tomorrow?
And did you take the easy parts of that job, or did you go for the harder parts?
No, I ended up at the tables that had a little bit of a problem, and I learned early on that we can almost overcome anyone's problem if you're just nice and understand what they're doing. So I was the guy that took care of all the troubled tables.
Mm-hmm. Peter?
Rocco, in the green room, you said you'd love to take a customer and turn them into a champion. How do you think that shows up today in your quest to serve others as president and CEO of Primo Hogies?
Well, as president and CEO, someone can certainly use the command and control module, but I tend to use the encourage and inspire module. And with that, I always like to take a customer and make them a champion. And that doesn't mean everything's perfect all the time. It just means that we understand what issues they may have, let them know we recognize their issue, and they make us a better company, and we thank them for it. And they drop their guard, and they become a champion.
And Rocco, you come across with a lot of confidence, having built as many companies as you have. What was it like growing up in South Philadelphia as a young Rocco, and where did that confidence come from in that environment?
Well, growing up on the streets is certainly something that I treasure today. I probably would have it no other way, and although I've moved on, I never forget where I came from, and it taught me a lot about myself and taught me a lot about people.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Rocco, who was somebody that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Certainly my dad. My dad was a cop. My mother was a waitress. And he was really my inspiration growing up. Certainly his work ethic was second to none. And he taught me a lot of simple, common sense things, and kind of learned as I got through life, common sense is not so common.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the story about the cemetery he mentioned to you?
Yeah, as I was getting to be in my teenage years, I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. And he reminded me that the cemetery is full of irreplaceable people, and life is still going on. Imagine that.
And how do you bring that with you to work every day?
Well, today, I'm certainly much more humble about everything I do, and I realize that anyone can replace me and anyone can be replaced.
Mm-hmm. Denise?
Rocco, how young were you when you started doing creative things or building things?
Yeah, early on, I when I was 3 years old, I wanted to take the car off the cereal box and see if I can fit myself in it and drive it. So I always tried to figure out how to do that.
So you were using imagination from a pretty young age.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Kayla?
Yeah, Rocco, what was your role in your friend group?
Well, growing up, I was in business at 15, and I wasn't really a big sports fan. So a lot of my friends were into sports, and on the weekends they kind of did a lot of social things, and I was working in my little truck. So I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up, but I certainly have a lot of friends now that I've known for a long, long time, and I kind of treasure them.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
You grew up in South Philly, which is just a very blue-collar neighborhood. What was your particular block like, and who lived on your block?
Yeah, we lived in a small block. There were 50 row homes on one block, so a lot of people on one block. And I had 7 different relatives in 7 different houses. So our backyards had no fences, and our doors were never locked. So I had the pleasure of going in and out of all my aunts and uncles' houses and raid their refrigerator if nothing was in mind that I wanted.
How did that fit into your current position? Like, how did that influence you?
That taught me early on about the community and how to work together, and it's all for one and one for all, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Meredith?
And I understand you have a son. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, my son's 22. He was born blind. He was a twin, and he survived. His brother didn't. And so he's 22 years old now, lives in Nashville. He's a musician. And I describe him best as a blind person in a sighted world. And he teaches me a lot every day. And a lot of times, I introduce him to friends, and he always tells me that sometimes us sighted people may be a little blinded by the facade when we see what people wear, where they live, what they drive. And he teaches me a lot about how to evaluate people in life, and I've learned a lot from him.
Have you learned about yourself through the course of building all these substantial businesses?
Yeah, Herb, I think I learn about myself every day. Sometimes I'm a better student than a teacher, and I think we all change, and we have to adapt.
Tell us more about that. What do you mean?
Well, I think the world is changing. Everything we do changes. I know I've changed. I can tell you that my priorities 25 years ago are certainly not my priorities today, and vice versa. My priorities today I never thought would be a priority.
Tell me more about this.
So, when we're younger, we think, fast cars and good-looking girls are what we want. But we get older and we have families, and we meet people in our lives that are influential to us, and we hopefully can be influential to them. And all of a sudden, my priorities are much different than they've ever been in previous years.
Uh-huh. Didn't you tell us a story about your dad recently? Something, how old's your dad nowadays?
Yeah, my dad's 90. He lives in Florida, strong as an ox, and I love him to death. He's very independent, and we talk a lot, and he still teaches me a lot, and he learns, some things from me, not a lot, but I still learn from him and his wisdom.
So this drive when you were 13 to go get a job in food service, and what you learned about, and what you were able to take on as a busboy that handled the troubled tables, and that, it's always keeping the customer first. This has served you through a wide variety of different industries, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and I always realize that if you can really serve people, and I have a knack to do that. First of all, I love it, and it's my passion, and I don't mind it. I actually prefer it. So I just love to do that, and it's been working for me fairly successfully my whole life.
So this idea to keep the customer first, you've been able to move into a variety of different industries and be successful, the common thread being the customer and people?
I think customer satisfaction is kind of the common thread, and that those two words take in a lot, because sometimes it takes a lot to satisfy someone. Mm-hmm. But I think if you understand them and are able to communicate clearly and are humble enough, you can always win.
And humble enough, and that's the other part that strikes me. I mean, you're all about the impermanence of everything. It's not like you're the best. It's not like this business is the best. It's like you're always evolving. It sounds like you enjoy embracing change.
Yeah, I do, and thank God, because with technology moving as fast as it does today, if you don't embrace change, I think you're left behind.
So you think technology has sped things up?
Oh my God, absolutely.
Uh-huh. And what do you really enjoy? What's meaningful to you?
Meaningful to me is being able to help people in whatever way I can, whether that's a colleague that is going into business and needs some advice, or whether it's a customer that really wants to understand how to have a great experience.
And what frustrates you?
I don't get frustrated often. I don't have any drama in my life. I stay away from.
What was
folks
that thing
have
about
drama.
control? Earlier we were talking, you told me if you can't control it, what was that about?
Yeah, well, it's about stress. I kind of try to stay stress-free, and one of the ways I do that is I simply don't worry about things I cannot control.
What's the website address at Primo Hogies?
PrimoHogies.com.
We've been speaking with Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of Primo Hogies Franchising here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back in a moment right after this Business Spotlight.